Of course.
Hello, Sai.
Hello, Mario.
Hello. Walter,
Now
you're still
I'm
walking?
walking.
You're still walking?
I'm still walking. Yeah.
Mario, you put the wrong, you missed one number on the meeting ID.
And what?
The meeting ID you posted was wrong.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
The 070 should be 080.
All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. Jorge,
Buenas noches, ¿qué tal estás?
bien. No estuvo
Mario,
para...
maybe you should change it, Mario.
¿Ah?
Just send the revision.
Why? Jaime already did it.
In case somebody makes a mistake, you know.
But
I posted it.
Jaime Eisenberg sent it already.
I posted it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chaim.
Jorge no estuvo en el Davione.
No pude, tenía tiempo para juntarme. It's too early for me. I'm in the midst of finishing up.
Okay.
Still have all my things to do, unfortunately.
Mandé los videos ya.
Sí.
Is there any? Hi,
How are you, Mario?
good. How are you?
Very good, Baruch Hashem. What page are we on?
259,
259.
volume 13.
Now, Sai.
Yeah.
Sai asked a question regarding singing when we wait. I don't think we finished that. I think we're on 248.
That's what I thought, but you said the other thing. Okay, 248, guys.
Humming. I was saying humming.
Correct. So that's what we're going to do. I think actually it's on 246. Let me see.
No. talking about chewing or swallowing.
Right, we didn't do that. But we learned about if one person eats already, then it's not considered a hefsek. We had that last time.
According to one opinion.
So we have seen so far 246. According to most opinions, if either the one reciting the bracha or those listening speak in between the bracha and eating, they must repeat the bracha again. What is considered eating from a halachic perspective?
Someone was detected at your front door.
Chewing or swallowing? It means, is it just chewing it? Is that already considered that you ate it? And therefore, if you talk after chewing, you wouldn't have to repeat the bracha because you already sort of started eating. Or do you have to swallow it? Right? So the Mishnah Berurah discusses this. He concludes that if one spoke after chewing, but before swallowing, you don't have to repeat the bracha. But ideally, one should refrain from speaking until after swallowing the food. You shouldn't talk until you've chewed a little bit the bread. Even the pasuk HaShulchan Aruch l'kamen b'sof siman reish yud b'toim levad, that just by tasting, even im lo bala, even if you didn't swallow, ain't sarich bracha, im kain ikra bracha labliya. The ikra bracha is on swallowing, but mikol makom im over v'sach ba'odah lois, if you spoke while you're just chewing, kodem shabola prusa b'dvarm she'eno mitzorch suda. We're talking about talking not for the purpose of suda, not bring the salt or do something related to the suda. Then tzarich iyunim tzarich lachzor levarich. V'chai adam tafilo bola rakatam shemeitzit b'fi ben alisa tzarich lachzor levarich. It brings the chai adam, if you chew it already, you don't have to make a bracha. However, one does not have to eat specifically a kazayas before he speaks. Even if one ate, meaning swallowed, less than kazayas, the Bir Aracha rules that it's defined as eating, and one may speak afterwards. It's preferable to eat a kazayas, if you can do that. Lo yasiach, yesh li zor b'zeh harbei, the Dasa Mogen Avram ve'Eli Rabba, the Mashalois lo mikra den achila, they hold that just chewing is not eating. V'im ken kishasach avi hafsik. So by speaking, when you just chewed, that's a hefsik bein habracha lachila. Ayin ve'Eli Rabba shevi b'shem birchas Avram, shegamu soiver kamogen Avram. He holds like the Mogen Avram to be stringent. Ach harbei achronim kosvu, the afshalat chavchila b'vadai tzarich lizor b'zeh. You have to be careful. If you spoke while you're just chewing, so 247. We said that you washed, you made the birchas hamotzi. If you talk before you eat, you have to make the bracha again. Let's say you start chewing, but not swallowing. So, b'di'eveh, we say you don't have to make the bracha again. But l'chatchila, you should swallow. Says the Bir Halacha, we're on page 247 near the bottom. There's Lushitas Arabim Desfir Laliyin Bracha Dasugya Ayr Babola. That by bracha, you have to swallow. Efshar de below Blia, Rak Bli Isa Ba'alma, it's you're going to be hefsek if you speak before swallowing. That you don't have to go and repeat the bracha. To summarize, the Chafetz Chaim rules that within the context of brachos, eating is defined as swallowing. Therefore, l'chadchila, you shouldn't speak before swallowing, at least some of the food. B'di'eved, some hold that chewing also has the status of eating. Chafetz Chaim rules that one may rely on the subpoena if one swallowed some of the flavor of the food, and in such a case, you don't have to repeat the bracha. Sephardic poskim such as the Yalkut Yosef and the Orlet Sion also rules that if one spoke while chewing, you don't have to repeat the bracha. Says the Yalkut Yosef, l'chadchila, ein l'daber dvarim b'telim ad she'yivla ma'pas. You shouldn't speak unrelated things to the Suda until you swallow the bread. If you spoke while you were chewing, you don't have to repeat the bracha. Your kavan is to eat, not just to taste. So if your throat, your palate is benefiting for the bread, that's enough. The Orlet Sion says the same thing. What about sucking candies? Is one allowed to speak lechatchila while sucking them, even though one does not actually chew or swallow the entire candy for some time? Means you make a shahakol, you start sucking the candy, and you're not going to swallow it for a while. You have to stay silent until you swallow the candy? The Piskei Tshuva addresses and rules that one may speak after swallowing a small amount of the flavor of the candy. The way we eat those is we suck it. We don't chew it. Below lilos v'livlo. Even shekain derech achilasan. This is the normal way of eating it. This is your kavana to eat when you made the bracha. Once you swallow some of the taste, mutar l'lavsik, you can then talk. Even if you don't swallow, but your palate sort of experiences the sweetness, some say that's okay too. So just as it is forbidden to interrupt by speaking between reciting a bracha and eating, it is also forbidden to interrupt the chatchila in other manners, such as a long silence or walking from one place to another. We talked about the hefsek between the tilas yadayim and cutting the bread. We should minimize the hefsek. This is after making the bracha of amotzi, that you should eat right away. There shouldn't be a long delay. Toch kedei dibur means shalom aleichem Rebbe, that period of time. The Mishnah Berurah cites the Taz, who writes that for this reason, the one who cuts the bread should first begin to eat his own piece, and only then distribute the rest of the pieces to the others around the table. Otherwise, you're going to have a long silence before you eat the bread. There's going to be a hefsek. So that's why the person cutting the bread should eat even before he distributes. The Piskei Tshuva, the next source below, goes further and writes that the one cutting the challah on Shabbos should eat a purse first, even before cutting the pieces for the others at the table. The Piskei Tshuva writes that one should not even get up from the table until he has swallowed some of the flavor in the bread or challah. You shouldn't do other actions after you wash, except just cutting the bread. And you shouldn't cut the bread into pieces for the people that were yotze with the bracha, only you, the cutter of the bread, should eat some of the bread first, so you're not mafsik by a long silence. You should swallow the bread before you walk anywhere. Even in that room. Don't walk more than 4 feet. Unless it's for the purpose of eating. to go get the salt, for example. Shaz muter lelechas gam mecheder lecheder. Aval mibayis lechutz, to go to the outside. Ulehefev chen mibayis lebayis yaseh. Kechol shebichlot limanu mekach. You should not do that. Now, some people hum a tune while waiting for the challah to be distributed on Shabbos. Is this considered a hefsek? Rav Wosner writes in the Shevet HaLevi that in principle humming is not considered an interruption, though he recommends being stringent l'chatchila not to do so. Shoalim negina v'kidibur linyan hefsek, olo. Is humming a song considered a hefsek? Midiskira poskim hafsakas nikud b'dinei aniyus amin dafka. The poskim say that humming a tune is a problem only while you're waiting to say amen to a bracha. Like the chazan elongating the singing of his words v'imru amen at the end of Kaddish. You should respond amen immediately before the singing of the chazan constitutes a hefsek. Humming within Birchas Kohanim is permitted, but only at the end of each pasuk, and not where it is elongated excessively. Rav Wosner inserts from the fact that the issue of singing constitutes a hefsek is only brought in these contexts, not in the regular context of what's constituted a hefsek with respect to brachos or the Amida, where it normally doesn't constitute a hefsek. So the lohuskar b'simin kuf dalet leaning afsaka b'emtzat tefillah mizel lechura yira they didn't hefsek mamish leka benigun kolzman shlotzim mipiv gam heged dibur. There's no hefsek if he didn't say a word. V'dino kedin shtika, but we said too long of a silence is a hefsek. She'arech hefsek kaveh lo etzem hefsaka. It's how long the hefsek is, not what you're doing during the hefsek. V'gam im neiman kedas achokim be'inyan b'anias kedusha. V'gam ashtika havi hefsaka. When you're in the middle of the silent amida, there are those that say that you shouldn't respond to Kedusha, but those that say you can respond to Kedusha, or that say that even being silent is considered an interruption, if you think about it, that it's different there, since there we are dealing with the principle of one who listens is considered as if he responded. And an actual response is certainly an interruption. Gam in nemen kedas achokim banias Kedusha de gam ashtika avi hafsaka shiny awesome the banu alamidin shomer ka'oine. By listening intently, it's as if you spoke. Mashenke neginas kol b'lisicha. Humming without words is not like that. Unahid l'chadchil lo yafsik gam b'nikud b'makom shas sh'lafsik. Mikom ha'ktiyavet ein lanu. He says he does not think it's a hefsik if you hum. But other poskim like the Dayan Weiss, Minchas Yitzchak, are more stringent and feel that humming constitutes a complete interruption and is forbidden. Humming is also forbidden. Oh no, not near let's say he hums a short amount as part of the actual bracha. But to start a nigud after you've said Hamoitz Lechem in Haaretz. The Vade have a hefsik lanias amen. The same is true between Hamotzi and eating. You should not hum. So you have one opinion that says it's okay. The other opinion says it's not. Okay? Because some people asked about that issue.
But even more so, if I guess the difficulty I had when this first came up, it was a little bit of a transition for me, because I didn't know the halacha way back then, but it was weird, it was sort of an underlying expectation that everyone would start humming together. And that was, and I don't know if that happens with you, but it seems even more so of a hefsek if that happens.
Okay, so we see that Rabbi Weiss doesn't want you to hum at all. According to the Shevet HaLevi, b'di'evet, if you did, you don't have to be closer. But he doesn't seem to favor it either. Page 259. This is the sugya of Pas Haba B'Kisnin, which we will explain. In the previous shiurim, we have discussed aspects of the procedure for deciding the bracha of Hamotzi, distributing bread or challah and a meal. In this year, focus on defining which grain-based foods does the halacha classify as bread, and therefore, on what do we have to make Hamotzi? And which of those get only a mezonos bracha? As we will see, many grain-based foods over which one recites mezonos are included when we talk about Pas Haba B'Kisnin, which refers to foods that function sometimes as simple mezonos and sometimes as proper bread. Now, we will, before studying the sources related to mezonos and Pas Haba B'Kisnin, let us study the Mishnah Masechta Brachos that lists the various brachos recited over assorted foods. What bracha do you make on fruit? Al peres ha'ilin omer boy priya eitz. Chutz min hayayin. Shekol hayayin omer boy priya gef. Wine gets an elevated bracha. The al peres ha'arotz, fruits that grow from the earth, omer boch priya adam. Chutz min ha'pas, grain grows from the earth, but if you make bread out of it, shal ha'pasu omer motzi lech min haaretz. Al ha'yerokois, vegetables, omer boy priya adam. Certain types of herbs. The Rambam accepts that Hamotzi is a unique bracha only over bread. Pas, bread, now, with regards to grain-based foods, Chazal understood that some of those which are not proper breads may sometimes serve the function of sevia, satiation, much like breads do. Chazal therefore legislated that the bracha of borei minei mezonos be recited. Although the Mishnah does not mention this bracha of borei minei mezonos, the Gemara in Bracha mentions it a number of times with respect to foods prepared from the 5 grains. One of these contexts is the passage in the next source concerning the category known as Pas Haba B'Kisnin, bread which comes as dessert. The tradition of the term kisnin as dessert in the Gemara follows the Hebrew and English editions of Rav Steinsaltz's Talmud commentary, or the term is obscure, and the commentators in the poskim debate the precise translation of the single word and the parameters of the more general term in the context of this bread, as will be seen shortly. And obviously this has a lot of halachic ramifications. According to the conclusion of the Gemara, one who eats these grain-based foods as the basis of a meal, meaning he's koveya suda, you recite hamotzi. While if you're not eating them as in the basis of a meal, you recite only mezonos. This is going to come in regarding pizza. The Tanya, Reb Moiner Omer Shmuel Yehuda, Pas Haba B'Kisnin, Mevarch L'Leah Moitzi. Omer Shmuel Halachik Rav Muna. So Shmuel brings that the halach is Rav Muna, that if you eat bread that comes as a dessert, you make hamotzi. Armelu Ein Halachik Rav Muna Itmar. We have a Masorah that the halach is not like Rav Muna. Amri Lei. V'amar Hu Damar Mishmei Shmuel. But I thought Shmuel said you do make hamotzi. So lachmaniot ma'arvin ben u'mevarchin alem hamotzi. That with little loaves of bread, you can make an eruv. That means if you you live in an apartment house, and you have many reshus hayachids opening up in a communal reshus hayachid, You may not carry from Rishus HaYachid into the communal Rishus HaYachid, even though you can go from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaYachid. Chazal made a prohibition to do so because it looks like a Rishus HaRabim. So you have to join everybody. Everyone gives a $1. You buy a loaf of bread. You put that loaf of bread in one of the apartments. It makes all of the apartments one house. And now everyone can carry from their apartment into the communal area. So you can use this lachmaniyah for an eruv and a motzi lechem. Like lachmaniyot, I think it sounds like crackers.
Wafers, it says here.
Yeah, crackers. So shiny awesome the kavas with the sayu alive. So the reason over there you make hamotzi is because he ate enough crackers that it was like his meal. Aval hecha the loy kavas with the sayu. If you just ate it as a snack, lo, you would not make hamotzi, but you would make a mizonos. So how do we define pasa baba kisnet? It's subject to debate among the commentaries in the post. All agree that such food is one which is not typically eaten for a full meal. Normally, you don't eat crackers as a full meal, you eat it as a snack. And this is brought by the Mishnah Berurah. These kind of grain-based things, people will not normally base their meal on it. They eat it as a snack. The bracha is mizonos. Ulachrav bracha mein sholish. Say ala michya. Ela im kain achol kashir kvia suda. If he ate an amount, which is an amount that would be kvia suda, da'az mavar chamoitzi berchas hamazon, because da'kol panim pasu. So we will present the three primary opinions regarding the definition of pasabas bekisnin, mentioned by the Rishonim, and explore the implications for specific foods which meet the respective criteria. According to Rabbeinu Hananel, cited in Rabbi Yonah, this is a Rishon, pasabas bekisnin is distinguished by its sweet fillings. Think about a donut that has custard cream inside of it. Here's Rabbeinu Hananel, the pasabas bekisnin Rishon Lamar. Habab bekisnin came in pockets. They make a pocket. They put dates, udvash, so if you have some kind of filling, so that's one approach in what's considered possible. If you're eating it as a snack, you'd make a mizonos, but if you made a meal of it, you'd make a motzi. Regarding a pastry of this sort, which has fruit and sweets inside it, the Magen Avraham writes that the filling retains its own status, insofar as a person eating the filling alone should recite the bracha appropriate for the filling and not mizonos. If any of the grain-based part of the food is included, then one would still recite the bracha mizonos, due to the principle that grain-based foods are always considered the primary ikar food within a mixture, and one recites mizonos on them. But for example, let's say you ate the mixture only, and it was a shahakol, then you would only say a shahakol. Ikar v'tofel, that concept will be discussed in volume 14. The Rambam says dough kneaded with oil or honey. This is going to be the approach when you go on an airline and they say that the bread they give you is a mizonos roll because it was made with oil or honey or other fruit juices. Then it would fall under this pasabas bekisnin, and that's what allows only making the mizonos if you were not kovei suda on that piece of bread. According to Rambam, the defining characteristic of pasabas bekisnin is the sweet dough containing other ingredients instead of water. Isa shloisha b'dvash, you needed the dough in honey, or b'shemen, or with oil, or b'chalav, milk, or she'ira b'minei tavlin v'afo, or you put other condiments, you baked it. Hi anikras pasav b'kisnin, says the Rambam. Aval bishu pas mevarach alav boy p'rinei mezonos. Even though it was baked into bread, you make a mezonos. However, in kavah sudos alav mevarach hamotzi.
Ernie, I understand the difficulty of pizza with respect to whether it's a snack or a meal. But I was thinking about this. When you go, let's say, to Trader Joe's and buy the prepared dough, how can you say that, and then you make your own pizza, how can you say that that's a mazonos? Because the bread was actually prepared before you put any cheese on. Not like a pizza shop that makes them together.
Okay, well, let's
Sure.
see. Let's see. You want to say that since the dough was prepared separately, the thing is though when you baked it with the other stuff.
Yeah, but technically, I think it's ready to eat when you buy it.
If you bake,
Or
so if you baked it without
but
the
I
other,
think it's half baked already. I think.
so that may potter you, but if you baked it alone without the other stuff, you'd have to make a motzi on it.
Right, but
If it was
even
just-
if you
if it
put
was
the
just-
cheese,
If it was just flour and water,
but even if you put the cheese in it, shouldn't it be a motzi anyways? Because it's like taking a slice of bread.
that bread has been baked already and is bread.
Right. Right, but isn't the dough that you buy, let's say from Trader Joe's, it's half baked at a minimum. I don't even know, it might even be full baked. But even if it's half baked, it's somewhat ready to eat. And it wasn't made with the cheese. You're furthering a product.
So if it was baked to a level where halacha would view it as being completely baked, then it might be like eating a grilled cheese where you'd make a motzi.
Right.
But if it's not baked and you're baking it only with the added ingredients, then it would be a pas babikizin. But even so, if you sit down and make your meal out of the pizza, you'd have to make a
Of
motzi.
course, right,
It's only if you're running and eating it as a snack
right.
that you'd have the heter of mezonos. In the Rambam's view, unlike that of Rabbi Hananel, it's not what is being baked in the dough, but the composition of the dough itself, which determine the status of pasabas v'kisnin. But the Rambam does not spell out the quantity of those ingredients necessary to distinguish this dough from that of bread. Is any amount enough? This question is debated by the poskim. According to Beis Yosef, the item becomes pasabas v'kisnin as soon as the taste of the kneading ingredient is detectable in the dough. The honey or the oil or whatever you're mixing the dough in, you have to taste it. Dumya the iriv b'minei taflin, similar to when you put herbs and spices in there. Shetanim nikir ki'isav is near ikir. Now the Ramah in the Darkei Moshe disagrees. The Ramah dissents argues that something may be categorized as pasabas v'kisnin only when the flavored agent becomes the primary component of the composition. Al-Kenir desfirali, the lo yotza michlal lechem, it's not bread, it doesn't leave the status of bread, b'masha irbo tav, just because you added some spice in there, or you add a little fruit juice, or sharmashkim out. Elim ken ikra isa nilosh mosen vorim, unless the dough was primarily kneaded with those other substances other than water. Much like the Rambam, Rav Hai Gaon understands that pasabas v'kisnin is distinguished by properties of the dough itself. But unlike the Rambam, he argues that the term primarily denotes a dry food, which is chewed or crunched. Ha'aruch piresh od b'shem Rabbeinu Hai. This is still the Beis Yosef who's bringing Rav Hai Gaon. Shepasabas v'kisnin hem ka'achin, crackers, biscuits. He pas bein mituveles, whether it's spice, bein shena mituveles. Sho'isinoso ka'achin yeveshim, dry crackers. The koisinoso b'beis hamishta. They're chewed at parties. Shalom based also, not in parties. Uminek bnei adam sha'oich mimenu kima. You eat a small amount, like think about a cracker. Uminek bnei adam sha'oich mimenu kima. V'ral div'ragon v'cholechem tzidam yavesh. Haya nekudim. V'chol lechem zun yavesh haya kisnit. So the targum of this bread, which is dry and crunchy, is called kisnit. So that's why he had a proof of apasa babi kisnit. It says the Beis Yosef, Ulina alocha, even the Sfeika b'midi M'Rabanan. All of these questions, hang on. Which of these three opinions, back to 263 on the bottom, which of these three opinions does the halacha follow? The Beis Yosef determines that since it's uncertain, which is the most correct opinion, all three of the types of food have the status of pasa babi kisnit. He says, even the Sfeika, we will be lenient. Whether or not we're dealing with a filled cupcake or donut. You're going to nikroim rosh kilash, filled donuts. Or a dough where they had fruit juice instead of water. Or spices. Nikroim bishkugis. These are cookies. Biscuit. Kulam din pasa babi kisnin yeshlem. Venum of archalem amotzi v'sholosh brachos. You don't make a motzi, you don't bench. Elim came kova suda sayala, unless you were koveh suda. O ochol shir shedech bnei adam likvoala, or eat a certain amount. So eating a cracker, eating a cookie as a snack would not qualify to make hamotzi. As the Beis Yosef describes it, it's a leniency to recite a bracha v'zonos instead of hamotzi. However, other commentators on the Tur discuss whether this should in fact be termed a leniency. The Bach writes, "Ikalit mo lama amar shukula, halo im enam avarach bracha reuyala." If you didn't make the bracha that is the right one, ben kachu chumra, you're making a bracha levatala, oiver mishum lo sisa. So why are you calling it a kula? So the Drisha answers this, who explains that reciting a more general bracha, such as mizonos, is considered a leniency. The same way that one fulfills the obligation of a bracha for any food when reciting the bracha of shahakol. In addition, we are lenient and recite ala michi as the bracha achron instead of birchas hamazon, which is a Torah obligation. So the Drisha says in halacha, because of Beis Yosef lahakel, it's a more general bracha, kamor birchas shahakol. It's certainly a leniency to say ala michya instead of to have to go through all of benching. On the basis of his ruling in the Beis Yosef, Rav Yosef Karo in the Shulchan Aruch accepts all three-sided interpretations in the Shulchan Aruch as varieties of apasa babi kisnin. With regard to the second criteria of additions to the dough, there are more rules as he does in Darkei Moshe, that a bread can qualify as pasa babi kisnin only if its flavoring is considered a primary component of the dough. So the Shulchan Aruch says, yesh mefarshim pasha suikim in kisim, like a filled donut, shemamalim some dvash or sukkar ve'egozim v'shkedim v'tavlet. V'yesh ramim she isa she'ev dvash. Some say pasa babi kisnin is dough that's been mixed with honey or shemen or chalav or milk or minei tavlin v'afa. V'hu she'atam taruvis hamei peris or tavlin nikir be'isa. The flavor of the fruit or the spice should be felt or tasted in the dough. V'yesh oimim, he's referring to the Ramah, shezeh nikra pas gomor. Elam ken yesh b'hem harbe tavlin odvash k'minei metika shekorin leikach, honey cake, shekimat advash v'tavlin me'mikar. Honey cake, it's considered the honey is ikar, so then that would be a pasa b'kisnin. V'yesh meforshim shu pas bein metuvel bein shem metuvel she'oisim osam ka'achim meveshim v'kosner osam. That you make dry biscuits, crackers, and you chew them. Halacha kedivrei kulam shekol elo advarim noisin lam dinim she'amarnu b'pasa b'kisnin. They have followed the general rule of a pasa b'kisnin. The Bir Halacha, the Mishnah Berurah cites, the Maimer Mordechai will suggest that the various interpretations of pasa b'kisnin may not disagree with each other. They complement each other. Concerning the proper bracha for foods cooked or fried with thick dough, Shulchan Aruch there cites two opinions as to whether one recites hamotzi or mezonos. He concludes that a God-fearing person should eat such foods only in the context of a full meal with bread to avoid any uncertainty. Halach, I am the Chedush Rabbi Akiva. Shehik she'amai lo kosav mechaber direi shemaim yotzei dei kulam. The Rabbi Akiva Eger, why didn't the Shulchan Aruch write that someone who fears Hashem should act to satisfy all opinions, like only eat these breads if you've already made hamotzi? Yet he doesn't say that. K'mo shekosav b'sif Yud Gimel. U'maymer Mordechai miyashvo. Kivan de loy niskar ba'adei shechokim aposkim b'zeh efshar demodi ladari hayin sham. It doesn't say that the poskim argue with one another, just this adding different possibilities of what would be considered a pas b'kisnin. So the Yalkut Yosef writes, follows the rule of Shulchan Aruch, as do most other Achronim, and he writes that one recites mezonos on a pas b'kisnin, which he defines according to the same criteria. Pasa b'kisnin mevarach alav boim mizonos, ula'achrav ala michya. Upasa b'kisnin hu al kol elu mevarach boim mizonos, l'chel michya. V'im kavah sudos aleim, if you, the hainu shachal 216 gram v'yoter, so that defines kaviyah suda. Then noitel yodov, umevarach aleim amoitzi lechem na'artzu bracha mas. Saul is asking about bread with raisins and chocolate chip. We're gonna learn that now. But we're gonna start it. Not sure we're gonna finish it tonight. There's actually two chapters of Pasa b'kisnin. So the details about all these little foods we're going to come next. So in light of the halachic criteria given by the Shulchan Aruch for defining a Pasa b'kisnin, which bracha should one recite upon sweetened bread, whose primary ingredients often include sugar, eggs, and the like, in addition to flour and water? One practical example of this question relates to sweetened challah or rolls, which consist primarily of flour and water, but include enough sugar to be discernible. Such challah and rolls are commonly sold in bakeries and supermarkets in Israel. Do they have the status of true bread and automatically are subject to Tzurba M'Rabanan and Motzei B'Chas HaMazon? Or are they considered Pasa b'kisnin, which requires mizonos and ala michya, unless it's eaten as a formal meal? It is important to note that, as stated here, even if such foods are classified as Pasa b'kisnin, and a mizonos is recited upon them, one would recite a motzi on them if they are eaten in place of bread as part of a meal. Though one might have to eat a larger amount in that case. And that will be discussed later, more detail in this year. So if Friday night you can have bread with raisin or bread that's got cinnamon in it or whatever, but that's your bread. That's basically what he's referring to. That you're going to be kover your suda on that. And if they're going to be eaten in place of bread as part of the meal, then you would certainly make hamotzi on it. As a correlate, might it be that only unsweetened challah, without additional ingredients, water challah is defined as true bread? I mean, even egg challah has eggs in it, and you can taste it. So at first glance, it would seem that based upon the second criteria mentioned for pasabas lekisnin, that means the dough is made with flavorable additives. If bread is made with flour and water, but with a discernible sweetness, it should be categorized by the Shulchan Aruch as pasabas lekisnin, such that his bracha would be boyer min mizonos. On the other hand, according to Ramah, the bracha for moderately sweetened bread should remain on motzi, so long as the flavoring does not constitute the primary element of its composition. For example, cake as opposed to, let's say, egg challah. That's what he's trying to make. Cake, its primary component is sweet. Egg challah, a little sweet, but it's not primary. So what we're saying is the Ramah, egg challah would work for the Ramah to l'chatchila make a motzi on. According to the other opinions, you would make a motzi if that's going to substitute for bread on Shabbos. If not, it could qualify for a mizonos if you're just going to eat a small amount. These subjects are subject to significant discussion and dispute among the poskim. Rav Dov Lior, former chief rabbi of Hebron and Kiryat Arba, addresses this case in the following tshuva and writes that these foods are defined as bread. Lachmaniyot metukot, rolls that are sweetened. Shekatuv al arizatan, birchos and boyer min mizonos, and the maker has called them mizonos rolls. Tshuva, lachmaniyot amekubolot hayom b'mdina, shemachnisim tzat sukar bebatzek, where they put a little sugar in the dough. Nira shezel lechem gomer, k'mo sheyesh chalos metukos l'Shabbos, like sweetened chal on Shabbos. V'lo shamanu shemishu yagid levarch aleim boyer min mizonos. In Rav Lior's view, it is beyond question that sweetened challah remains firmly within the definition of bread. Regarding small rolls of the same variety, the smaller quantity of the same variety of food does nothing to change the categorization. Thus, it's also proper bread. Many other Ashkenazic poskim agree with Rav Lior's position, even when a person is not eating them within the context of a proper meal. It should be noted that Rav Lior's ruling was intended to apply to both Ashkenazim and Sfardim. In his view, the Shulchan Aruch and Ramah debate the function of mildly sweetened bread, and if such bread serves the purpose of shvia, satiating, and constituting a meal, or if it's a snack. Rav Lior argues even the Shulchan Aruch would agree that our lightly sweetened bread rolls should be categorized as proper bread because they are made to satiate. They serve as the basis for full meals. This approach is supported by the language of the Beis Yosef, Mishnah Berurah, and many other Ascronim, which indicates clearly that the reason for reciting mizonos on Pasuk Bava Kisnin is that most people do not establish a meal with these foods. Therefore, it can be inferred that foods such as sweet rolls, which are usually used as the basis for a meal, should be subject to the bracha of hamotzi. Rav Yaakov Ariel, who used to be the chief rabbi of Ramat Gan, agrees with the general approach of Rav Lior that the determining factor is whether the bread is meant to be eaten as the mainstay of the meal or a snack. Accordingly, he writes that so long as loaves are baked to serve as bread, even if they are made primarily with fruit juice or the like, such that the taste of the roll is significantly different than that of the standard roll, even the Ramah agrees that their bracha should be hamotzi. Rav Ariel summarizes his conclusion in the paragraph below, but he adds that if a person eats only a small roll, the appropriate bracha is mizonos, because a roll this size is not generally formulated meal. Halachmanyat up to coat, enam p'turot minitis yadam v'rach samazon. These sweetened bread rolls, Rav Ariel is referring to rolls that are made with oil and fruit juice, and that even the Ramah would, in theory, rule that one recites the brachos of mizonos on them, because you don't taste anything different about them. You're going to eat a small amount, but you're not going to be satiated. 30 gram. 60 gram.
Ernie, why
Yes.
is this different than matzah shruya?
You mean soaked matzah? Like you
Well, no, that they make with fruit, with juices. As
egg
opposed
matzah.
to
You mean egg matzah.
egg matzah, yeah, right.
Okay, but again, egg matzah is meant to serve as bread. You're going to eat it.
But you don't make it. You can't be achilas
You can't be
matzah.
same chila matzah with.
But here you say
So
you
there-
make a motzi.
No. Egg matzah has its own unique issues regarding Pesach, because you can't be yotzei matzah because it's matzah ashira. So I thought you said shruya. Matzah ashira means
Sure.
it's wealthy matzah, means it's been made with fruit juices and things like that. So that's an issue being yotzei din of matzah because it doesn't qualify for matzah. But let's say during the year, a person might make hamotzi on egg matzah because you're going to establish it as replacement of a regular bread. Somebody who can't chew properly, but he's going to use it. Think about it like egg challah. Art, when you buy a challah for Shabbos, and it's egg challah, that's what they're talking about here. That's what they mean by it's sweet. Like those of you who eat water challah. So that's, you just have the taste of flour and water. Egg challah has the taste of egg in it. But according to all the posting we've seen so far, you're still going to make a motzi on it. Unless it's small, you eat less than 30 grams, you're not going to be kovei sud on it. Okay, we're going to stop here because we have a fair amount to go in this subject matter, but I believe we'll conclude the whole sugya next week. Questions, comments, ha'arot from anybody? Anybody have any things that they want to?
I have a question.
Yes.
It sounded like because if it's a dry biscuit, you might make a mazonas, but a breadstick, isn't that a clear motzi?
So the only thing, according to the third opinion of, who brought the third opinion, where they talk about crack, like if it's chewy or crunchy,
Yeah.
so that might exclude that. We'll see. They're going to mention that.
Okay.